Garcia was politically motivated.
He alleged the case had been rushed for partisan advantage. Abrigo Garcia, returned from deportation, faces charges of human smuggling tied to MS-13 activity.
A tragic shooting at a school in Graz, Austria, left at least 10 dead and a dozen injured on Tuesday. Joseph Eckerson with the latest.
Authorities confirmed the incident occurred in the morning and have launched a full investigation. Security agents have cordoned off the scene and are conducting evacuation.
A UK-flagged flotilla aboard the ship Madeleine attempted to breach the Israeli blockade of Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid.
Early Tuesday, Israeli naval forces intercepted the vessel in international waters.
Poland has elected a new president, with conservative historian Karol Nawrocki winning the runoff vote.
His victory marks a significant shift in Polish politics.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
Yeah. We're fucking radio stuff now.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
Telling you, everything is
My dog is your mind's best friend.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with a Dog. You make me laugh.
Nothing much to laugh about today. Are you with me up there? Good morning, you people. I am having technical difficulties, as you might have guessed. Waiting for the proper machine to load up. I'm using my background machine, and obviously you're hearing computer audio, not my microphone audio. And you say, well, what the fuck do you have headphones on for? This is a good question. So I can hear like that news stuff and all that stuff, but we'll see. We're going to try and get it squared away. Hey, here it is. One of these days. I'm going to have to get out of here a little bit early today anyway. We have a guest with scheduled Joshua Spatha, who is a guy who's going to talk to. He's trying to convert me into some kind of faith believing. He's got a book, Mere Spirituality. He's trying to convert me into some kind of believer or something, which is just not going to happen because I don't believe. I just don't believe in anything. Anyway, we have a new sponsor for you, Tantally.com. Now, Tantally has, Tantally, if you don't know, the link is in the description. You guys probably have heard of Tantally, come to think of it. You probably already have one. They're a sex doll maker. Yes, they are a sex doll maker. Let me show you what they got here. This is Diana. She's based on a real porn star. What's her name? Diana. What's Diana's? Does her last name really matter? Diana Daniels, born March 1st, 1997. Too young for me. Resides in Europe and currently 25 years old. She's a highly popular amateur model on Pornhub. platform. Renowned for sharing homemade videos with her boyfriend, she has successfully secured a position among the top 100 models of the year, however alluring. And so basically this doll is made on her, based on her, except it comes without a head. You have to supply your own head, which is why we keep Steven around for the head. So there it is. Tantally, the link is in the description. I mean, if you get 10% off, you mention Mind Dog right now. Just go to Tantally. Link again. The link is not only in the description. I think it's floating by in the chat room, so you can go come buy a plastic version of Trafficked Women. Carl says, "Well, yeah, but with headless trafficked women, you have to be very, and you have to supply your own head. Which, what Isis King don't look? What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know what you mean. Anyway, let me take Diana out of there. You know what? We played the commercial. Let's just say hello to the men in black. The men in black. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I hear you. Look at that.
Yeah.
You ready to get converted?
Sure.
TD, you're already a believer, aren't you? You're some kind of like you're a believer. I'm a believer. Like a monkey believer? No?
Good morning, America. MyDogTV.com. Are you a miserable old man who has no friends?
Well,
and has no friends to help you celebrate your upcoming birthday? Call 202-456-7041. That's 202-456-7041. Ask for Donald. He needs a friend also. Maybe if he had received the love that even a reptile gives its young, he wouldn't be the snake that he is today. MindDogTV.com. Enjoy the suffering and support your local mercenaries.
Now, was that the White House number that you just gave out? Whoa.
Yes, I did. Yes.
You think there's probably only one Donald in the building there? There's probably a second guy named. He's probably a janitor, right? No,
well, we'll see what happens.
Probably not his birthday though. Coming up. Now, do people not remember that Hitler threw a military parade for his birthday? And because the thing is, they keep saying, "Don't compare us to Nazis. Don't compare Trump to Hitler," and then he does things that are absolutely something Hitler would do. Do people not know this? That Hitler threw himself a 50th birthday party with a military?
A lot. I don't know what people know and what they don't know. It does appear that a lot of them just don't care.
Yeah,
it's different. It's different. If Biden were to do it, they'd care. But this is their cult leader, and their cult leader, they don't. He can do what he wants to do. They're just going to go along, and that's the problem. No matter what Trump does now, it becomes part of canon. See, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It becomes part of. It's like he's done a lot of really bad bullshit throughout his life. And they get to pick and choose what's real and what isn't real, and they say this is the Trump canon right here. Forget the rapey stuff. That's not him. Forget any pedophilia he may have committed on Epstein's Island. Doesn't matter. This is canon. He's our great business leader who's going to save the world.
We need a cannon. You got a cannon? Because I could use a cannon.
Actually, on the way to DC for the parade.
Now he said we're already heavily into politics here, but he said,
"Oh no! This is birthday talk. This isn't politics. We're discussing birthdays."
But he said this is politics talk. He said that anybody using their First Amendment right to protest is going to be met with extreme force. I forget exactly.
Big force, very big force.
Big force.
Very
big. So this is what people need to do. If they want to protest, they can go to DC, even though Indivisible is asking people not to protest in DC. I'm saying if you do protest in DC, have birthday cakes and get together and you sing the birthday song to Donald, but you sing it like this. You're a fucking dictator. You're a fucking dictator. You're a fucking dictator. Shove this candle up your ass.
Wow, I don't remember.
That's beautiful, man. Did you just write that?
Yes.
Masterful, man. Masterpiece. Beautiful.
They just asking me to do a paint party in New Jersey today. Today in New Jersey. Of
What
all,
time?
I have to just say no to no paint parties in Jersey for me. I have a senior citizen show I have to get to, so I'm going to probably have to cut out of here early. I don't know. Is our guest already late? Yes, he's already late. No, he's got.
Oh, it's only 9:10.
Feels like the day is just flying by here already.
I think he saw the bouncing tatas and got distracted and went on another mission.
Well, yeah. What was that?
Stephen was trying to hold his token one more second.
Well, Stephen, here's the thing. When I know you have a plethora of sex dolls and fake women in your.
I have none.
No, none. It's a funny way to say 200, but whatever. So, do you have any that are headless? And what is the point? What? I don't get the point of making.
I don't know. See, some of my favorite activities involve the head. So without a head, it's kind of pointless.
I think that's what happened. I think he grabbed the ears so hard that the head just keeps coming off. Maybe the heads are optional. Like there's a place that you can actually attach the head.
Well, there is a place where you can attach your own head if you have one.
You can also buy dolls with full everything. So I don't know.
Now, are the Japanese their technology is ahead of us? Because all theirs. Right?
No,
they have one. They have a head. They talk. They make sounds. They're warming and they're lubricating. All sorts of weird shit.
I just to remind everybody, this is the guy who said, "I have none," and now he's just giving.
Oh, dude, the videos come up on TikTok all the time. They do.
Yeah. If they're robots or if they're dolls, they can't have their videos pop up. Somebody has to be recording them.
Yeah, they're all over social media.
Dolls don't make videos. I mean, I have a cat that's actually alive and it doesn't make its own videos. So I doubt that a doll that isn't alive can make its own video and post it on YouTube or TikTok.
I'm seeing if I could boot up this machine again one more time and get over to the right machine. If I could do that in the next 3 minutes before becomes 15 minutes after the hour, we'll do that before we bring our guests in. It just seems to me like I get the concept here. Bring your own head. Bring your own head. It just they should at least sell. Like we have a full line of heads that we also sell. No, it just makes sense. It's part of the business model. No, you can't.
Wasn't there a movie? I think it's like 7 heads in a duffel bag or something like that.
Something.
I don't know, but usually when you buy the real thing and not the toy, it comes with the head. So.
Well, imagine if I open up a car shop online and I sell you everything but the steering wheel. Right? That's what this is like. And go get your own.
Kind of sounds like it's missing the motor.
Oh.
Well, if you have other steering wheels like in the showroom and you say this car does not come with the steering wheel, but you get to pick the steering wheel
that's what I'm saying.
On these dolls.
They should
where the head goes, is the hole still fuckable? I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah, for a friend. Like you don't have any friends. I think we discovered that in the beginning with the birthday.
Okay, to be fair, John Beavers is asking, but
now John Beavers has friends because there was a nasty comment. I know you guys saw the comment there. Did you?
What's his face was going to translate it to me to boomer talk because I didn't understand the sentence. I mean, I understand it wasn't flattering, but I didn't understand exactly how to translate it into English.
So basically, one of Blind Mike's friends decided he likes you.
Eclectic Buddha.
Button pushing motherfuckers.
Well, I didn't push no buttons.
Okay. Yeah, no one touched anything.
Completely kicked me out of StreamYard for a second for no reason.
Anyway, so one of Blind Mike's friends happened to catch a clip. Now, I think he caught the clip that Blind Mike was on, and it doesn't say that Blind Mike is on that show, and he's pissed at me for not putting that in the title. But that was a last-minute booking. First of all, we didn't know he was coming on when I created that. And second of all, deal with it. You found it? But he's angry at me for not.
Now, what site was that he saw that on?
YouTube.
Okay, because I didn't recognize the format of the capture. So it's like a short then.
Where did I take the screen cap? Oh, from my phone, YouTube. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe it's from my YouTube studio thing.
Well, after we talk with the guests, I wanted to send a message to Eclectic Buddha. So I'll wait after the guest has been introduced and after the interview with the guest. I have a message for Eclectic
But he
Buddha.
still has a problem with John Beavers. Now, yesterday, John Beavers said, I don't know if he posted the link. He said, if you want my apology, go to my podcast. I'm not thinking he was sincere about that. I think on this podcast, he probably.
Well, I think he was sincere. I think he was sincere that he wants you to go to his
listen
podcast.
to it. Yes. I would say I have part of the apology on my phone.
You want to just summarize it?
Well, can we bring it's 9:16. You know, obviously this young man has traveled a long way to be here. I think we should honor him and bring him in, and then insult him with the other vulgar words that you want to use, Stephen.
No,
I want to use.
You know, so you can't just spit it out really quick before we bring him in.
Oh, he basically just said, "Sorry, Blind Mike, that you're such a pussy."
Oh, that's so mean.
Actually, here it is.
All right.
Blind Mike.
I didn't hear any of that.
From the bottom of my heart, that I'm sorry that you were insulted when I called you a pussy. I'm sorry that you took it so seriously. And maybe it's because you're irritated from all that sand in your vagina. Maybe it's because you got dropped on your head too many times as a baby. Maybe because
was Tom Myers in the room?
So clamped up for the past week that you haven't been able to shit. I don't know. But I will tell you this. I am sorry that you're such a fucking pussy.
Oh my God.
JD.
I can't believe he used the F-bomb like that. We would never use that on this program.
John Beavers once wore.
Well,
now my only concern is they have a guest. They have one of their hosts is named JD.
It sounded like you said GD.
I know. And at the end of the clip,
Gibson's son.
And at the clip, you hear somebody laugh, and then you go JD, and I know that somebody in his chat room is going to go. He said GD. GD was part of this.
JD Gibsonson.
No,
Round
JD.
two, right.
JD. I can't remember his last name, but he's out of California. They also call him Dark Lord.
All right. So let's get to Jason, right? Joshua. Sorry, Jason Joshua. Yeah, well, he doesn't care if I change his name.
No, I was told that he was fine with it.
He's a very spiritual dude. He's got a whole world view that is different than mine. This is happier. Joshua Spatha majored in anthropology. Listen, I'm no geologist, but I don't even know what anthropology is. Is minor in Old Testament studies before he began serving in full-time missions in 2006, traveling primarily in the Middle East and Asia. Jeez, he's looking for God somewhere. An ordained minister and a student of history and missiology. I know, what is missiology, Stephen? Explain.
I don't know, but you didn't say he was a pastor. Now I feel bad for asking if the hole was fuckable.
All right, he has led collegiate level discipleship and missions training programs with youth with a mission. Kind of like you would be into if you own
don't.
He has served on the leadership of several ministries and is currently preparing to move long term to Central Asia. Boy, I want to move too. I can't. He's married to a Singaporean and is proud father of 3 multicultural boys with a passion for discipleship, training, and equipping. He speaks, teaches, and writes frequently. Let's let him into the room so he can judge us. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning.
How are you? Did you bring your judgment?
No, I think I left that in bed this morning.
Okay.
Nice.
Discipleship. I've never heard that word before. Now, is Christian based? Because it's hard to tell where your religion lies. But when I hear the word disciple, I go back to, oh well, that's a Christian thing. No.
Yeah, for sure. Comes from the root word discipline, so it's not always in a positive connotation, but yeah, training.
Are there people who can't be saved, and am I one of them?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are there people who can't be saved, and am I one of them?
Don't know you well enough to make that call, but
wait, want me to read your bio again? All that stuff. It sounds like you should know it all of it with all this studying you've been doing. You don't know if I can be saved or not, or
let's go with a hard no and move on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I think the only unforgivable sin that Jesus mentioned was blaspheming of the Holy Spirit. So as long as you don't do that, I think you're good.
Oh, I'm fucked.
I said blaspheming what?
Of the Holy Spirit.
Oh.
Now, how do we define that? What does that mean? What do I have to? Not that I want to do that, but I'd want to not do that. Probably too late, I think. But how do I avoid doing that? What does that mean?
Yeah, the context there, or the kind of the religious elite of the day, the Pharisees. Jesus happened to be doing a miracle at the time, and they were claiming that the power that he had was from Satan, from the devil. And so when he said, look, I'll forgive you of any sin, but blaspheming of the Holy Spirit, not so much. So he was saying, look, if you're taking what is good and of God and attributing it to Satan, no, I'm not going to forgive that.
I think there's a lot of that I see, I mean, this is probably something you're not familiar with, but there's a plant called cannabis, hemp plant, and they call it the devil's lettuce. Now, I'm thinking if you're a religious person and you believe God and devil, you believe God created all living things. You don't believe the devil Satan actually created a living thing, right? So would that qualify as that blasphemy of the Holy Spirit?
No, I think it pertains to the miraculous, not the natural. But
okay, all right. See, I'm learning here, Stephen. You see how I'm learning? It's a good.
I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah. Well, what is this worldview spectrum thing? What does that? What does that mean? Worldview spectrum.
Well, all of us, in simple terms, most of us are either lean toward thinking or feeling. We're either kind of right-brained individuals or left-brained individuals. And there's typically a rather wide chasm between the two, and a lot of ad hominems and disparaging of the other side, whichever side of that spectrum you happen to fall on. And so there's people who really pride themselves in being rational, intellectual, logical individuals, and there's others who really distance themselves from that and believe that experience and feelings and being in the moment is what's most important. And so based on the fact that each individual is going to kind of be wired one way or another with their own biases, either due to cultural influences, their own family, or their own personality, then when you congregate people, they're going to tend to lump together, like-minded individuals, and therefore every human institution, and organization, and then larger, broadly, even cultures, are going to have a particular flavor. They're going to lean one of those directions or the other, and so you can kind of get a bird's eye overview of the culture or the institution or the organization based on that dynamic.
Now, you're talking about the two halves of the brain, basically two sides of the brain, how one, thinking and feeling and so forth. You majored in anthropology. And if I get any fact wrong, just feel free to correct me. Don't worry about my feelings. I don't have any. I lost them in the first divorce. If you majored in anthropology, and according to anthropologists, I guess the consensus is man as we know it today is roughly 300,000 years old. Conventional wisdom in Christianity, they say man is the earth is about 5,000 or 6,000 years old. Having studied both things, how do you reconcile them, or do you reconcile them in your head?
Yeah, that was actually primarily the reason I went to university to study anthropology, and I studied historical geology and cosmology as well, to trying to get the narrative or the overarching themes and evidence for that version of the story. And what was interesting about that is there's a lot of theory, there's a lot of hypothesis in origin theories. There is not a lot of evidence in the way that we think of scientific evidence as being empirical, observable, falsifiable. There's hardly any of that when you dive into origin theories, because obviously none of us were there. We don't have a YouTube video. Yeah, you're getting there.
But one could say the same thing about the Bible, though. None of us were there when it was written, and we know from other records that we found that things in the Bible have been altered, changed, falsified, and it's easier to falsify the Bible and its teachings than it would be to put dinosaur bones several hundred feet into the ground.
Blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, doesn't it? Is he going to hell?
I'm not going to hell. I too am a former minister, and the only way you can go to hell.
I was hoping you'd co-host my show when we got there, but
no, you have to. No, in order to go to hell from where I am, you have to take the number 17 bus, which doesn't stop in my neighborhood. It doesn't take my kind.
I'm sorry, I interrupted the flow of your continuous question that was going on for the rest. You were just saying the Bible is also old and nobody was there. That was basically. How do you reconcile?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So the question isn't necessarily one of scientific evidence. It is one of faith. In other words, regardless of your worldview, there are going to be some presuppositions that you're going to have to just accept fiat. That you don't have a basis for those, in that there isn't observable evidence for it. And that goes for a religious worldview or a secular worldview, a supernatural worldview or a materialistic, naturalistic worldview. You can dive into some of the reasoning and lines of logic to come to certain conclusions, but ultimately, due to the finite nature of humanity, there's going to have to be some assumptions, base level assumptions that we each make when forming a worldview.
Is that true? Because I'm thinking, now, do you reject physics and things like things like the James Webb telescope, what they're revealing about the universe that we live in? Do you reject all those things that scientists want to bring to the table about this? Because they will tell you there is proof. There is definitely observational proof of the universe being older than 6,000 years, or at the Earth being older than 6,000 years.
First of all, no, I study science. I love science. I don't reject it at all. However, as Plato said, science is nothing but perception. We have to realize that every evidence, every piece of data that we interpret from science requires some baseline assumptions and is going to be biased on the part of the observer. And so two different people with two different worldviews can look at the exact same piece of evidence and come away with two completely different conclusions. Now, the scientific method, is there to help mitigate those biases as much as possible. But it's impossible to completely step outside and get an objective perspective of reality, because each of us has our own perspective.
Wow. So the perspective that would say, because it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my head around what you're saying. The people would have to believe that, or want to believe that what we're seeing from outer space telescopes that have extremely long distance capabilities, that those are coming up with things that we want to believe. Is that what you, as in the scientific community, they want to believe?
No, it's not about, well, I mean, there could be some level of want. Obviously, we each have a preference and a bias, and so there may be instances where one individual is selectively cherry picking some bits of evidence or data and rejecting others in order to maintain a worldview. But that's not what I'm advocating. When you're talking about starlight travel, talking about physics, the predominant argument is, well, we know the speed of light. We're pretty confident about that number. And so then we can calculate out, due to various mathematical models and calculations, using actually a series of different calculations and then stacking them on top of each other to estimate how far out an object in space is. And if we're using the speed of light as a constant in that equation, then we can make fairly accurate, I believe, estimations on how many light years away this galaxy is, or this source of light is. And so the basic assumption there is that light has been traveling at that speed for therefore X number of years, and therefore the further back, or the further out, I should say, we look into space, the further back in time we are perceiving. But that is assuming a certain cosmological framework. There are other frameworks and other models, and all of these are just models. There are other models which would account for those distances without needing the billions of years for that light to travel.
Now, is it your I'm not assumption, but just your opinion, because I've read some of the things about you on the website here, that secular parts of society are becoming less religious, but not necessarily less spiritual. Is that a belief that you have?
It's not a belief that I have. It's borne out from the data that we have from polls, both from Christian research polls as well as secular.
Well, can you tell me how you? I guess we should back up. How do you measure whether somebody is spiritual? I mean, because I say, oh God, I hope. God, I hope this is a good day. God, I hope I don't die today. Does that make me spiritual?
No, I mean, polls are going to be based on self-identification. So you get a survey and it says, which of these categories do you identify with? And so there's going to be atheist, agnostic, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, all these religious options, as well as what survey and researchers put kind of as a catch-all. The category that they typically put on a survey is called spiritual but not religious, or nones, NONES, where people identify as.
How I would interpret that answer. It's like, I'm afraid to say I'm an atheist. I'm also afraid to not to dismiss the idea of God just in case. That kind of thing. So people will say, yeah, not religious, but I'm spiritual, and not really have any spiritual practices or any of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. The polls don't follow up and do a video blog of your life on a day-to-day basis to see if your claimed beliefs match up with your daily reality.
Yeah, so it's like people who say they're libertarians. They're afraid to say they're a Republican or a Democrat, and they figure that's a safe one. Something like that. It's not necessary. I don't want to commit. I don't want to commit to saying I believe in something. I'm always curious about these things, but does that make me spiritual? Because I think about God all the time. I think about creation. I think about the nature of the universe. Is there a God and stuff like that? But I'm not necessarily convinced that anything is true. Like, I guess, and I'm not certain I will ever know. What does that make me? Just
I mean, the technical category that you would clearly fall under is agnosticism. So you're on the fence. You're unsure. You're open to the possibility, but you're not convinced that there's evidence or even that there could be evidence.
So
So that would be agnostic.
This is probably a terrible question, but I'm sure one you probably heard before. So if I go through life as an agnostic, and then when I know I'm dying, my last breath, and I know this is my last breath, and I say, "Oh, I believe in Jesus. Jesus, please save me." And do I have the opportunity then? Can I wait that long? Or do I have to get saved now?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's multiple, cases of kind of those deathbed confessions. And, I'm not God, so I can't, judge the sincerity of those confessions. That's not in my role or job title. But in terms of, can you wait? Until you're dead. The question is that a risk you're willing to take, right? None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. We could walk out the door and get hit by a truck, So it's not a question of, can I wait? It's, do I know that I have that time? And furthermore, if there is a God and he is good, and he is a God of blessing and wants what's best for me, then me being in relationship with him now is actually to my advantage, not just after I die, right? So it's a question of value and what you want to do with your life.
So from your perspective and your belief, for your worldview, I'll put it that way. If now, because I've been told that this is the wrong thing to do, to challenge God, to prove to me that he exists, show me reasons to believe. Is that blasphemy?
No, but there is a question of sincerity, because we see this kind of in both directions in the New Testament, in the Gospels, where people would approach Jesus and he would perform a miracle. There would be a healing, sight given to blind, paralyzed people being healed, et cetera, et cetera. So there clearly isn't any negative connotations associated with the miraculous. And Paul later in the New Testament actually explicitly states that when he goes preaching the gospel, he does not just present it in terms of logical, reasonable arguments, although he does that as well. But he says, I don't want your faith solely to rest upon man's arguments or wisdom. So he also would perform miracles, proving the power of God, rather than just asking you to take it on blind faith. But then you have the other side of that, where people would approach Jesus wholly insincerely, where they were just trying to trip him up, corner him, prove him wrong. So they came at him with zero faith, zero good faith, even in an argument. They just wanted to make him look bad. And so they would come and say, hey, if you're who you are, who you say you are, show us, prove it, do something spectacular. And to those people, Jesus did have very harsh words and rebuked them, and was not willing to dance for them.
I have I'm kind of curious, because for the most part, the New Testament is basically Paul for the most part. I mean, I think there's more writings of Paul than anybody else, probably in the entire Bible. I can't think of anybody else who has more letters or writings, compositions in the book. Paul was more seems a lot, or compared to Jesus, Paul was a lot more focused on sexuality, celibacy, and stuff like that. Jesus didn't even seem to be an issue. So why does Paul's words and attitude about sexuality have more weight than Jesus's words and attitude towards sexuality?
I don't think they carry more weight, but as you look at each book in the Bible, obviously each one is geared toward a particular theme or toward a particular people or problems that were occurring at that time. Jesus was primarily speaking to Jewish people who had a very strict sexual ethic, and they didn't live up to those ethics, as we see several times Jesus rebuking people for not living up to that ethic.
No, you're referring to like being married and having kids and stuff like that? Like, because in theory, if Jesus was a rabbi, then he should have been betrothed or married by the time he was an adult, because that was the practice at the time. So Jesus should have been, if not married, betrothed. Now, other thing is that if we're to believe the Bible is real, then Mary was not married to the person that she conceived Jesus with, which seems to be a violation of the strict ethical practices that they had at the time. So either Mary was married to the father of Jesus, who would have been Joseph, and then the rest of the stuff is window dressings that they changed to alter history, or she gave birth to someone she was not married to. I mean, she had sex with someone she was not. She conceived Jesus with someone she was not married to, which would kind of be like a violation. That would be like betraying Joseph's trust. It's like you had a baby with someone else, but we were married. So
yeah,
it seems like
absolutely.
there's okay. Go
And
ahead.
the Gospels are, explicit on that fact. Like, it doesn't brush that under the carpet whatsoever. It makes a huge deal out of the fact that Mary, they were betrothed at the time, Mary and Joseph, not married yet. And it makes a big deal of the fact that she became pregnant, and obviously not by Joseph. And so Joseph was
You're saying obviously not by Joseph, and it's not obvious because we weren't there. We just know what, because it's only, I think the virgin birth is only in 2 of the Gospels and not in all 4.
Well, it's obvious in the fact of his response and reaction to that. If the child was obviously his, then he wouldn't be trying to quietly end the betrothal.
Because it's not his doesn't mean it wasn't, let's say, Joseph's brother, Ben. It could have been someone else and not God. And then she was like, "Whoa, Joseph! No, I swear I was not with Ben. This is like a miracle."
Yeah,
but again, we have to go to then what was the outcome. And according to the Gospels, Joseph was also then visited by an angel who told him where the baby actually came from. And as a result of that, instead of quietly ending the betrothal, he married her.
Wow. Again, that's something that, for example, after the fact, people will say things that didn't necessarily happen, but they need to make sense out of things that have happened, or they want to come to terms with things that have happened. My mother, for example, yes, I should have put the alert out there that I was going to talk about my mother. My mother, once she got cancer, actually, I take that back. She, quote, was saved before they got the cancer. But she would claim that Jesus healed her diabetes. And I said, well, Mom, you know that according to the New Testament, that if Jesus actually healed someone, he said, go show yourself to the doctor so you can be verified. My mother goes, oh, no, I know. And then, sure enough, my mother still had the diabetes, but she swore up and down, there's no convincing her that she wasn't cured of her diabetes, but we knew she had it after she died, not from diabetes, but from the cancer that Jesus cured her of.
Is there a prayer I could say to make his questions less than 5 minutes?
No.
Well, when we're talking about, yes, you're absolutely right. People come up with excuses or justifications for their behavior all the time. However, it's much more difficult to attribute that outcome to a lie when the actions that individual took are not in their own self-interest.
But those actions that are recorded, okay, these books were handpicked. I mean, there were dozens and dozens of books that were destroyed because they did not match. I believe it was Constantine who gathered up these books and said, this is canon. These other books, these other stories that people are talking about, we don't like them. We're burning them. We're get rid of them. And so this is what we want to hear. We want to hear about Joseph being contrite and saying, I believe in the virgin birth myself. And we don't want to hear the other things. So
that is a popular conspiracy theory, but for which there's absolutely no historical evidence for.
There is historical evidence of that, actually, because we have books that are old. Now, I'm also
you can talk to atheist scholars.
No, I'm a former minister.
Even they will say that's not true.
I'm a former minister. I'm not a current minister, but one of the things that we did study was the ages of the books and how some of them are older and some of them were discarded. The fact that you're still finding books that, or the fact that they were finding parchment, that some of it lined up with what was in the Bible, like the book of Isaiah, and then some things did not. So we are going to pick and choose and say, well, because this aligned with Isaiah, this is good. But in that very same jar, there was parchment that talks about the book of Peter or Mary or Judas or something. We didn't like that. So that's fake, even though it's in the same jar as Isaiah, because Isaiah matches up with the handpicked stories that they liked and put in the Bible. It doesn't make sense.
It's not about being handpicked. It's about being able
they were
to
handpicked,
corroborate.
No, but they were handpicked.
Handpicked in the sense that if you go to college right now and pick up take a course in history, the book that you're handed is handpicked, but that doesn't mean it's cherry picked. It doesn't mean that they have neglected or discarded or rejected other historical accounts. It's
but we know, but we do know that that's what Constantine did. That's why they got together. That's why they have the council. If they weren't going to,
we actually have the notes from that council, and it at no point does any of the things that you're claiming. Now, this is a very popular narrative. Dan Brown blew this narrative up and writing a fictional book, trying to make this into some grand conspiracy.
Yeah, Dan Brown did a disservice to history in his works, but that's okay. That's Dan Brown, and I didn't read his works.
Yeah, but I'm saying he kind of put that narrative out into the popular culture. But if we actually go back to the historical accounts, we see that those accusations are unfounded. The Council of Nicaea did not select which books to put in the New Testament. The New Testament was already largely being read, observed, and practiced by the early church. They were just officially.
The books were they were different sects of Christianity, and they all had their own stories and stuff. There was not one Christianity. There was, if it were, then Paul's job would have been a lot easier. There was different people had different ideas of what they thought Christianity was, and they all had many of them had their own little books that they went by. Their own.
What you're referring to? Yes, there were sects such as Gnosticism, which had heretical teachings. Yes, absolutely. In the same way that there are within science, for example, there are multiple theories. There's going to be the ones which have widespread support within the scientific community, and then there's going to be fringe theories that 90% of scientists are going to be like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't comport with what we know to be true whatsoever. That is also the case in a religion. Yes, I could come up today and say I'm a Christian, and then give a bunch of evidences or arguments for completely heretical beliefs which contradict that which we know to be by definition Christian. But just because I say that I'm a Christian and I believe these things, again, it's like we've already discussed, my stated beliefs don't necessarily match up with my actual lifestyle and lived beliefs. And therefore, there are boundaries of what you can claim and still be in line with what the book allows you to live. Now, not all religions are like that. There are religions which don't have kind of a codified book of rules, if you will, and therefore you can believe and accept and do a a la carte system of theology, whatever you desire, such as Buddhism, for example. It's a very pragmatic and very syncretistic philosophy. But when you have religions such as Christianity or Islam, which do have codified belief systems, you can't claim to be of that belief system and then also claim to have a bunch of beliefs and practice a lifestyle which contradicts the codified rule book.
Well, that sounds like you're putting a rule down that you can't. I mean, you can, but maybe certain people don't accept it. But I think you're free. You have freedom to do that. But
well, in Christianity, for sure, we believe in personal, free will and freedom, and so no one's putting a gun to your head saying you can't do X, Y, or Z. Islam, that's not necessarily the case.
No, it's not a gun, it's a machete, but it's close enough.
But there is that idea that here is what is established. Here are the boundaries. Here's the definition of this belief system. You can't claim to be of that belief system and then contradict, the core tenets of that belief system.
Yeah.
So how does Donald Trump fit in with
the Christianity movement?
Yeah,
all the people in America who claim to be Christian but don't want to welcome strangers into their land. They want to all the anti-Christian parts, because Jesus definitely would, according to the Jesus I think I understand, would not be a MAGA Christian today. It wouldn't be borders and all this stuff. I don't think Jesus was, from what I've read, it wasn't like blaming the poor for all the problems and all that stuff. How do you reconcile those people who, in the name of Christianity, are doing they don't care about what Jesus did? It doesn't matter. He would probably be deported. Jesus would be deported in America today. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, I mean, in the New Testament, obviously there was a strong political element in the culture at that time. So I only say that to say, like, the hyper politicization, of our society is not necessarily a new development. That's been around with us for a long time. And at the time of Jesus, the Jews were quite vocal politically against their Roman oppressors. They were not big fans whatsoever.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was largely why they rejected Jesus as the Messiah, because their view of the Messiah was political in nature. That
somebody was going to wage war against Rome.
Absolutely. And so there was a lot of antagonism, in Jesus's time. But what is curious is we do not find political diatribes of Jesus. He did not really engage in that sphere. That was not his primary concern or mission. There were times where people would try to corner him in order to kind of get, a response about Rome and trying to, force him into a corner to say something bad about Caesar. And he pretty much refused. One of the responses he gave was, they were asking him about taxes. Hey, is it right for Rome to tax us? And he said, hey, whose face is on that coin? Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. And so he really wasn't too interested in the political realm. So I'll lay that as kind of the foundation or the backdrop of then what I am going to say specifically regarding immigration, as that's a point you brought up. I actually have a research article on my website called Biblical Borders. And what we have to understand historically is we need to read everything in its historical context. And when we read in the Old Testament, phrases like you brought up of welcoming strangers, etc., you have to understand that Israel also had borders. Ancient Israel had borders. Not only did they have borders, but they were strictly enforced, not just like military, guards and posts along the edges, but in terms of if you were to immigrate to Israel, there were very strict immigration policies. You had to know the language, you had to adopt the religion, you had to adopt the customs. And after you had fully assimilated into their culture, into their religion, and into their lifestyle, and into their language, then it was still not until the second or third generation of your offspring before you could become what was considered a citizen in Israel. And so what the backdrop of that biblical injunction of welcoming the foreigner is not welcome them no matter what they're doing or whether they're assimilating or not. It's assuming the fact that they are moving to your country in good faith, that they want to be one of you. They want to adopt your language. They want to adopt your culture. They want to adopt your religion. And therefore, in that context, you should not disparage them. You should not treat them as a second-class citizen. They can become one of you. And I think as Americans, although yes, there's going to be a broad spectrum of people and their opinions on that. But I think our Constitution and our immigration laws definitely account for that. We do allow people to move here. We do allow them to flourish. And that is biblical. But what is also biblical is not allowing anybody and everybody into your country without the assimilation, without the reconciliation of culture, because when you have that, historical studies, this isn't scripture, but historical studies show that without that unifying culture, without that unifying language, then your society breaks down, becomes very fragmented, and very contentious, which eventually brings about the fall of that.
That
society.
doesn't really work for what I'm, because we're not just seeing, we're seeing people villainized and called rapists and murderers without ever getting to know them and judging them. And this is why I started with, am I going to hell? Because that gives you an opportunity to judge me. Who is to judge that these are bad people, unsavable people? We should treat them brutally. So it's not, you're talking about one, the answer you just gave was about states controlling, states meaning countries, states controlling their land, their borders. And that's not what Jesus, at least as far as my understanding, that's not what his concern was. He talked about the kingdom of God. And I don't think God would say, if the entity truly exists, would say, well, these people deserve a chance to be saved and these people don't. I've created some of my children just to waste them away. It doesn't jive. It just doesn't.
Yeah, no, if we're talking about salvation, yes, absolutely. I agree with you. If we're talking about citizenship, well, I mean, that is a completely different question. You know, you go to Romans chapter 14. But
again, the question is, these people who are involved in politics and they're state people. That's not what Jesus was. I can't claim to be following in Jesus' footsteps if I'm doing stuff that Jesus would never have gotten involved in, right? What can I?
Yeah, and obviously, I can't I can't speak for every politician out there and whether or not they're a Christian or not. Of course, we can judge the tree by its fruit and say, evaluate. Okay, what is this politician claiming? Are they claiming to be a Christian? Number one, are they claiming to be adhering to Christian principles or the teachings of Jesus? Yada yada. And then what are their actions?
Right.
Absolutely.
I think we got off this, but my point was, it doesn't matter to me whether Trump is a Christian or a Buddhist or Muslim. I don't care what Trump is.
How about atheists?
My question is about the people that proclaim to be Christians that have accepted him as a Messiah, that have accepted him as their way back to God, making this a Christian nation, which this isn't a Christian nation. We're supposed to be having the government establish no religion. So we should be as welcoming and accommodating to Muslims and Buddhists and agnostics and atheists as we are to anybody else. So I want to know, why is it that I'm sorry, you shouldn't I'm not asking you to answer for those who decide that they follow Trump. What I'm asking is that according to what you know about scripture, should these people be following Trump as they do?
You want to make it about Trump? I thought we were talking about the nature of
I asked about, when I was asking about Trump, and we got like,
well, how would we know that? You talked for 15 minutes and then
because I specifically mentioned Trump by name in the beginning, and then it went off a tangent, not by me, but in the answer. I did not take it astray.
Yeah, I would say that due to cultural influences and where we are as a society, politics has invaded kind of every sphere and every aspect of our life. And for whatever reason, even though I think politics is one of the most mundane and distasteful things to engage in, in terms of stimulating conversation. Obviously, that is a huge influence and kind of sets the tone of every conversation. I am not one of those people. Politics should taint or invade every conversation and et cetera, et cetera. I'm certainly not one of those who views Donald Trump as some type of messianic figure. I do to some degree understand why some, a certain segment of the population might see him in that light, in the same way that before you don't jump on me yet.
No, I was just going to ask you, why would you see that? I was going to
because like historically, going back to scripture, historically there were ancient Israel was under foreign occupation multiple times, right? And they were taken into captivity. So they were kind of small dogs in a big world of very aggressive dogs. And so there were times where they had foreign occupation, which they appreciated. And there were times where they were under foreign occupation, which they very much disdained, Rome being one of the latter. But for example, when Alexander the Great came and conquered much of the known world at the time, the Jews were actually quite relieved that he came, because he actually brought some liberation and freedom from their former occupiers, which was a great relief. And they saw him as, to some degree, as kind of a messianic figure. And so I think there's a portion of the population in the U.S. who has felt that things were going in the wrong direction, that their beliefs and their values and their ethical systems were being disparaged, and they saw Trump as someone who would be a champion for them in the same way that Alexander the Great was at the time. Now, I think it is
BS. I call BS on that. Part of that is we're using Israel and the Jewish people almost like they're gold standard. And if that's the case, the Jews themselves decided that Jesus was not their Messiah. If they decided,
I'm not using them as a gold standard. I'm just using them as a historical example of similar behavior.
Yeah,
but even still,
historically, messiahs have been people who, for better or worse, or for this is a human failing, is that they see somebody who's going to save them from whatever they fear, and whether that is a occupying force or whatever. And if we break it down, I think Slaptail did it in the chat room there, that white supremacists, Donald Trump is going to be the Messiah who's going to restore white culture to America. There is no doubt about that. That's why they see him that way. It's not like he's performing miracles. He's going to bring back the life that they want, which is 1950s America. Black people existed, but we didn't have to see. Brown people existed. We didn't have to see them. We didn't have to deal with them. They were maid servants and cast-asides. And that's the world they want to bring back. That's why they
I think there's certainly a segment of the population that would fall under that. I think it would be pretty unethical to paint with a broad swath, brush and say that everyone who supports Donald Trump only does so for that reason.
We're not saying everyone.
No, the ones who see him as Messiah, the ones who call him Messiah. That's why they call him a Messiah. I don't think that's too broad a brush for the people who call him Messiah. Not saying that everybody. Some people are just team players, and I'm on the red side, I'm on the blue side. There's lots of different reasons for it, but the people who are lifting him up to this messianic, I can't even say it,
messianic
Messiah, those people are doing because they think that he is going to bring back the life and culture that they feel the United States should be about. And so,
well, I think some of that is pretty self-evident in even the catchphrase MAGA.
Right.
Make America great again. Obviously, the again means that we're hearkening back to a prior time, an idyllic, time. I think each person might have a different view of when exactly that idyllic time was. But again, I don't want to disparage entire groups of people. If I'm having a one-on-one conversation with someone and they say, yes, I follow Donald Trump because I hate people of color, or I want X, Y, or Z, and I see, well, okay, that's not exactly a great reason, and that's not exactly a moral foundation to stand on, then I'll certainly have that conversation with the individual. What I don't want to do is just lump everyone into a category that makes it easier for me to disparage, straw man them, or attack them based on traits, qualities, or arguments which they may or may not even adhere to.
While they are doing the same to everybody who doesn't agree with them.
They may be, but I don't know who the they is you're speaking of. So again, I would engage with individuals. I don't want to get into labeling entire groups of people.
Well, let me know. I'm serious about this. If you find one of those individuals who does not generalize and say, well, everybody who doesn't agree with them hates America and is the woke and whatever that means to them. If you find one of them, please let me know, because I would love to have a conversation with them. A question I have for you now, as a person, because your mission is to bring more people to God, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's a God, why would he leave it confusing for us? I mean, here's the deal. If I were raising a family, I would want my children to be certain of what the truth is, to be certain of what reality is. I wouldn't leave it so confusing to them that they have to guess in a book that is written in riddles and really confusing language. I would make it very clear for them. Why the question, and I know I'm doing a GD here, a long-winded question. Why does God leave us confused about this stuff and not make it very clear?
Yeah, well, in some sense, it is super clear. In that every human being who's ever lived has been born with the hardwired biological assumption that there is a God, that he exists, and therefore we have a certain response to that. Now, modern cultures and ancient, materialistic worldviews go clear back at least to 5th century BC. We have historical documents of Greek philosophers who taught materialism, that there is no God and that everything can be explained via natural processes. But that is an unnatural, if you will, philosophy, in that is not what people's basic assumptions are. There's books and research done on this, on why the question of God is actually a biological reality, in that it's hardwired into us. We have to come up with kind of artificial mechanisms, philosophies, or frameworks to reject that natural conclusion that every person would come to by default. So in some sense, there is like a pretty simple baseline level revelation, if you will. Scripture would call that general revelation, that we understand that there is a God. Now, of course, then there is the question of who is that God? What is his character, his attributes, his plans, his purposes? How do we fit into that? And that does require a little bit more work and investigation on our part.
So why?
Wait, hold on, Stephen. I'm looking at you like my dog when I throw the ball, confused here. Because how could we possibly know that we are? You can't measure a infant's thoughts. And I don't think there's any real way to know. We're hardwired to that. I think every assumption I came into life with was fed to me by my parents and their beliefs. I didn't come as a baby thinking, born and thinking, well, there must be a God. That came from parents telling me that there was a God. How do we?
Yeah, there's going to be this, the nurture versus nature argument will go on, forever.
No, I just wonder, how do you come to that conclusion that we're all hardwired with with this idea that there is.
I can refer you to a scholarly book called "Why God Won't Go Away," and it is all about brain science and just CT scans and understanding how the brain functions, and which puts forth that argument.
If a person has the predisposition to want to prove that we're hardwired for that, they're going to see that in their data. I kind of see why you don't want to paint with a broad with a paintbrush. Why you don't take broad strokes with a paintbrush? That's because you're using a roller.
This is a logical fallacy when you dismiss an argument simply because of where it came from. That's called the genetic fallacy. So we have to engage with the argument itself rather than saying, well, it can't be true because so-and-so who has a certain bias came to that conclusion. They may have inserted their bias into that argument, or they may not have. In the case of this argument, the book that I'm referring to, Why God Won't Go Away, these were secular scientists. They weren't trying to prove that God existed. They weren't Christians, they weren't religious.
You can be secular because not because you don't believe in God, but because the thing that you need to see to convince you there's a God, you haven't seen it yet. And so you could be secular. It's like being an independent when they actually are the Democrat. They're ashamed to be called Democrat right now. They need to see something better from the Democrats so they can call themselves a Democrat or a Republican. They say, oh, no, I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. And as soon as the right conditions come along, they go like, you know something? I've been a Republican all along. A secular person does not necessarily mean they don't believe in God. It just means at that moment, it could mean at that moment, the very thing that they need to push them or to convince them they haven't seen yet. It's stuck in the back of their head.
Right, but if we were to dismiss every argument based on the potential biases which the arguer was either allegedly or actually, guilty of, then we couldn't have any good faith conversations with anyone outside of our own.
Right, I'm not discounting it because of their beliefs, because I don't know their beliefs. I'm just saying possibility. Right. So I don't know. I'm not so arrogant as to think that I have these answers. I'm just asking a question. And because I have that question, I can't believe in the veracity of what you're saying because I still have that question.
Well, none of this. So you referenced the book, but one book and how do they know what a infant is pre-wired to think when there really are no conscious thoughts until language develops? And so how can that even be measured? That's where the statement that we're pre-wired to believe in God makes me like, well, that's just something you believe. You're taking that on faith. There's no way we can actually know that.
Okay, well, let me pivot to a different line of reasoning then, because this isn't from one book, it's not from one study. This is the kind of the broad spectrum of human research definitely leans this direction. I mean, even among atheist scholars, this isn't really a contentious or controversial claim. They agree, yes, biologically, we are hardwired to have this understanding. They come up with different naturalistic explanations of why that is the case, but hardly anyone would actually argue that it's not the case. Naturalistic explanations for this reality usually fall under some type of evolutionary benefit argument. In other words, either biologically, natural selection discovered that believing in God was somehow advantageous for the organism, and therefore there's some God gene in our DNA that is passed down through the generations. That is a very difficult argument to make because conceptual things in the conceptual world or the abstract world are not genetic. So ideas aren't physical traits that can be passed down. It's not like my kids get the English gene and they pop out speaking a certain language. Those are things that we have to actually teach people. But the other argument is that it was a social advantage. And therefore, rather than it being something biological that was passed down, it was just a kind of fundamental truth that humanity as a civilization or society accepted as being advantageous, and therefore it was perpetuated not through biological evolution, but simply through kind of the free marketplace of ideas, one being better or more advantageous than another, and therefore it kind of winning out in the free marketplace. But
if you start off saying that people were pre-wired to believe that there's something greater than themselves out there, I guess I would almost buy that. But to say that that God is what it is that they believe in, I don't buy that at all, because otherwise we would not have had the people worshiping the sun or worshiping animals or worshiping other things other than God, if that was what the gene is. I can understand people looking for and understanding there's something greater than themselves out there. Does not necessarily that it's a God thing as much as it's a insecurity thing. An insecurity gene, not a God gene.
Yeah. We're kind of running out of time here. Joshua, you want to tell us about the book? First of all, before we even get to the book, are you sad for me? Because if your mission is to lead people to God, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hell. Are you sad? Are you even sad for me?
I mean, sad would be, that's more of an emotional statement. I'm not literally sitting here crying, but am I concerned for you? Yeah, absolutely. As one fellow human being to another, who wants, what's best for you. I don't know you, and therefore I don't have a strong emotional attachment to you. But I'm sure if we hung out and became friends, that emotional side of things would definitely become stronger. But
I think you would,
in principle, a concern,
Go
absolutely.
Go ahead.
In the same way that I have a concern for you if you were doing hard drugs, and I knew what that would lead to and the outcomes that typically produces. Yeah, I would have that concern for you, but ultimately you have free will, and so I'm not going to impose upon you a certain framework or worldview, but I would certainly want to have a conversation and see where that could lead.
I think if you knew Matt, you would probably write a sternly worded email to God and be like, expedite delivery, pits of hell, please.
Wow.
First row.
This is my best friend in the whole world, Stephen.
Yes.
I've known him for 65 years, even though he's only 33 or something.
Well, he used to carry me around in his mouth. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you said there, but it seemed to me if I had your mission, I'd be really depressed because the amount of people you're actually going to lead to your beliefs is going to be smaller than the ones who are not. And you have to know at the end of the day, although I'm going to hell, GD is going to be there, Steven's going to be there. We're going to have a big party.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
So I'm in a wheelchair. Am I going to go to hell, seeing as how there's only a stairway to heaven?
Would you stop with that?
Because I just don't think that's fair.
You really have to stop using that stupid line.
Oh, man.
You're going to hell for using that stupid line.
That's fine.
And my hell would be I have to listen to it for the rest of eternity.
That's it. Let's just see. This is what.
Good morning, GD. Welcome to your doom.
Yeah. Let's talk about the book. Mere Spirituality. It's an ebook, right? Or is it also a hard copy book?
Yeah, it's published through a traditional publisher, although it doesn't come out until August 5th. So
okay.
Right now you can get it as
forward in it.
No, I couldn't get a hold of him in time.
Now, mere spirituality, what does that refer to? Mere, it's a strange word to put in front of spirituality. I'm sure you knew that when you created the title. What is the significance of that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a play on another book written by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. And C.S. Lewis was an atheist who then later in life came to the faith. And so his book was kind of putting out the rational argument for Christianity from an atheist perspective, or former atheist perspective. And so this book kind of went one step back even to kind of lay the foundation under that, which is before we even get to the question of Christianity, what is the logical or rational argument even for spirituality, or as you said, a belief in something greater than ourselves? Is there a reality beyond the physical and material universe?
Well, I heard me pop in, but I'm not seeing me pop in. And my computer is finally getting started over here. I apologize for all the technical difficulties this morning. Anyway, mperspective.org. Now, how soon are you planning on moving to Central Asia?
That is I wish I had an answer to that question. Right now, we're trying to sell our house. That's probably the biggest hang up before we can go. I don't control the U.S. housing market, so I'm kind of at its whim as to when that'll happen. But I also have a few other projects that I need to wrap up. But we've been in this process for quite a while. I'm very anxious for it to be over.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating. I know. So now, why the move? I'm curious about that, because there's plenty of people that need saving here, right? Me, Stephen has become, I don't know, a little more towards the faith side. He was a hardcore atheist, activist atheist for a long time. Now he was teaching in a Lutheran school, so I don't know what he believes. But so there seems to be enough lost souls that need saving right here in America. Why the move to Central Asia?
Yeah, well, we go back to the Great Commission, Jesus giving us instruction to go into all the world. You go to Acts 1:8, then, and it kind of fine tunes that or breaks it down a little further. You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. He sent his disciples out. They weren't very obedient at first. They actually congregated in Jerusalem. And then persecution came, and that kind of forced them to go and do what God told them to do. So you're right. Obviously, there's plenty of opportunity here, but what isn't also recognized as the other side of that, you're talking supply side dynamics and demand. We have tons and tons and tons and tons of pastors and churches here in America. The issue is not that there isn't someone to witness to them. It's that there's a breakdown in the discussion or in being able to have that conversation, either a lack of interest or a poor communication, we might attribute it to. When you're talking about other parts of the world, it's simply a complete and utter lack of availability. You're talking about millions and millions of people who have never even heard the gospel, never even been presented with that information, and therefore can't even make a free will decision on that fact. And so it's strategic in getting the gospel to where it is not available is the basis of that.
Does your mission become a frustration ever for you? I mean, because it would, if I set myself a goal, a mission, and saw how difficult it was, it would wear on me. Because I think you probably would agree that people don't go where you want, where you're hoping to bring them all that easily.
For sure. Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think anything of significance in life is going to come with great struggle and difficulty. Losing weight, getting in shape, that doesn't happen easily. A strong marriage and raising children, that doesn't happen easily. There's ample opportunity for struggle and hardship in life. So the question isn't, is something easy or hard? It's, is it worth it and valuable or not?
What about fun? Do you have fun?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
do I not strike you as a fun-loving guy?
What? No. You strike me as a guy. If I came to a party, he's gonna and saw what I was doing at the party, he'd probably be looking at me with a judgmental eye, which is why I started with the judgment. I feel like everybody who feels like they have a relationship with God, is looking at me saying, that poor sucker, he's going to hell. And you know what, maybe that's a valid point, but it feels judgmental. It feels like they're condescending. So yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I hope I haven't given you those vibes. No judgment here. The beauty of Christianity isn't that we have it all figured out and we are holier than thou. In fact, that's the opposite of the gospel message, is that all have sinned, all have fallen short. We're all in the same basket. It's only because God is good that any of us can come to salvation.
Well, we agree on that basic idea that, you know, of that non-judgmental thing. But again, coming back to my broad brush, I think the majority, and I'm not saying every Christian in America, the majority of the Christian activist movement out there, these people are they are very judgmental. There's our way or the wrong way, and that's it. And I'm on the wrong way. So I feel judged by that. I think it's only natural.
I think that's, again, I don't know exactly who we're talking about, so I'll just
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, okay.
Not really.
Well, in terms of, with any absolute truth claim, obviously there is going to be mutually exclusive categories, right? So if we're going to accept a worldview that says there is no truth, that everything is just relative to the observer or the individual, and therefore your truth can be your truth and mine can be mine, then in that framework, all of us can be judgment-free, if you will. But in any framework or in any worldview which states there is an absolute truth, then there is going to be that statement of X is true, and if you are not agreeing with that statement of fact, then you are by definition in error. And so I think to some degree, you know, that's kind of unavoidable. That if there is absolute truth, then two people can't give two different answers and both be correct at the same time. However, that doesn't necessarily mean there has to be judgment involved. It's just an acknowledgement that, hey, one of us is wrong. Let's have a respectful conversation, question everything, and see who is right.
All right. Well, we appreciate
But is it not possible that with two people, that neither one of them are totally completely wrong, and neither one of them are completely right? So they're both a little bit right, a little bit wrong.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. And that's why having honest, you know, discussion and being able to investigate those claims is so important.
Well, I definitely feel like I do come to the conversation in good faith, wanting to. I don't want to not believe in God. I don't want to believe. I don't come to it like I want to believe. I want to know. I want to know what reality is. I don't know why I'm driven to kind of understand that, but that is definitely. I don't come like trying to dismiss your belief or to adopt a new belief or dismiss anybody's belief. I really want to know what the truth is, and it feels like I haven't been given the tools, and that's what comes back to my question, and it will have to be for another day though. Why would a God create me to be just go through life confused about whether he exists or not? Why wouldn't he just make it very clear to me? And instead of, he created me, right? Why did he make me so stupid?
Joshua, in all honesty, Matt does go to church every Sunday, and he still hasn't found the answers that he needs to have, but he does go to church every Sunday.
Yeah, well, I don't want to draw out, you know, take too much time on that, but just, you know, if I could very concisely, you know, one of the answers to that question is due to the character and nature of God. Now, again, I'm not stating it fiat that there is a God, but if there is a God, and if that God is love, as the Bible claims, and if that God, therefore, as part of that love, does not force himself upon us, that we actually have free will, then there is a question of, in order for us to have free will, in order to choose him or reject him, then there does have to be some level of ability to do that. And if we were hardwired in such a way that we rejected every argument, every every bit of pride and arrogance in us that said, I'm my own master, and we just wanted to submit to another, then that wouldn't really be free will. We would just by default do something and not really have another option. And so this question comes up quite a bit of the question of why isn't the proof just so utterly convincing?
Or
why
obvious.
isn't it written in the stars? Matt, God loves you.
I mean, if you go through the trouble of putting a God gene in you so that you are born to a predisposition to look for God, then obviously there's something else that, if that's the case, I mean, if they put this gene in it, then this guy obviously wants to be found. Otherwise, he wouldn't put this thing in us that says you look for it. Right. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is he wants to be found. In other words, he wants you to choose him, not be forced to believe in him. And so there was a discussion between two atheists. I forget, one of them was Peter Boghossian. I forget who the other one was, but they were having this discussion, using explicitly the example. Why doesn't it just state, in the stars, Peter, God loves you? And they joked about it, and they said, well, even if that were to happen, I would still doubt God's existence. They would still come up with
Peter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so there's a question of how much evidence is necessary to convince a particular individual, and that threshold is different for different people. But I think there is enough evidence to convince any rational human being, but there's not enough to force them to believe it. They have the option to pursue other arguments.
All right, I have to go quickly, and so I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you for being here. The book is Mere Spirituality. It's available at mperspective.org. Our guest has been Joshua Spatha. Appreciate you being here, and thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Bye. Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Just for Slaptail, I'm sorry you're bored with this conversation. I was not bored with the conversation. I am deeply interested in these things. I don't think Joshua has changed my perspective on it, and you know what? It's hard to change your perspective on these things. But I am sorry you're finding this boring. Maybe if I leave now, because I do have to leave. GD and Steven, you can yuck it up all you want. I have to, if you guys want to continue. I have to go.
We'll continue. We love it when you're not here. I mean,
I know you do. I know you do. And in your life, you're probably going to call me names and say stuff about me.
I would never call you a name to your face. I wouldn't call you behind your back.
Right. Okay. All right. So I'll leave now. I will show myself out. You guys, the thing is, this idea about God wanting us to, because if he wants you to love him, right? God wants you to love, but he programs into you the ability not to love him, and then he's judgmental against you if you don't. He's all forgiving, but yet judgmental, and if you don't come around to his way, he's going to send you to this fiery pit of whatever hell is really about. And it's all self-confusing to a dog like me. Just throw the ball. Let me know where to chase the ball, and I'll go get the ball. How about that? No,
okay. Your ball is bouncing into traffic.
Your ball is up. Your ball is at the senior center. Go get it.
I
don't know which senior center I threw the ball to. I hope he gets there all right.
Hopefully, you just didn't throw it to traffic.
Damn, I didn't even look. Matt, if you're still listening, if you get hit by a car, it's my fault. I should have looked where I was throwing the ball. I'm sorry. Damn. I should have looked.
Typical dog. He's probably licking himself, not even listening, about to go chase it. Yep, there he goes.
Now, I did have this. I just wanted to make this plea to Mr. Eclectic Buddha because of the thing he wrote on the YouTubies or wherever it was that he wrote it. And I just want to say, Mr. Buddha, Mr. Eclectic Buddha, I don't know who got to you, or who paid you to say these things about me, but you weren't paid enough. And I hope that you can live with yourself after having written those things about me.
You hurt his feelings, you bastard.
So no, my feelings aren't hurt. I'm just hoping he can live with himself, because I'm thinking that somebody got to him and made him write those things about me. And so that's all. I am concerned for his spiritual well-being.
Well, his thing, Buddha, right? His god,
Eclectic Buddha.
Isn't Buddha a type 1 diabetic?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know what his dietary needs were back then. And actually, technically, Siddhartha, the original Buddha,
Right.
was not a fat guy. He was a thin
No,
guy.
Yeah.
He was a thin guy. And it was just that back then, I think the Japanese god of joy was a big, round, rotund fellow.
Assimilation.
Yeah. So that became like the Buddha. That's my understanding of it.
Kind of like how Jesus became a white dude that looks like Brad Pitt.
Really, Brad Pitt?
Well, not Brad Pitt. Probably more like Keanu Reeves or.
I was thinking Willem Dafoe. No.
Oh no. I would love to see William Dafoe. Dafoe be Jesus.
I honestly thought that there was a movie where Willem Dafoe played Jesus.
I doubt it, but that would be fucking great.
I think so. I'm just going to. So, Steven, tell the people about your show tonight while I look up Willem Dafoe playing Jesus.
Sure. Yeah. So tonight, Visions Event Center, Fort Wayne, Indiana. $5 cover charge. You'll see myself and 3 other comics, and we're gonna bring a banger and put on a show and have a good time. There'll be some drinks and food and good people, and yeah, man, come check it out. It's cheap, good time, something to do on a Wednesday. Knock off the midweek slump and get back to hump.
Okay. Well said, my man. Willem Dafoe played Jesus in The Last Temptation of Christ.
Did he really?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
That's wild. I would never have guessed that.
The Last Temptation of Christ, Willem Dafoe played the part of the adult Jesus, not the baby.
So you think he's up on the cross and he's like the faces that he makes? I don't know.
I don't think he was doing any Marvel parts back then. So
like the Green Goblin on the cross.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Peter, your Aunt May is dead now because of you. Don't you feel bad? I was like, Dude, Peter, I'm on the cross because you denied me, Peter. Judas, you son of a bitch, Judas. Actually, I don't know what Willem Dafoe sounds like, so I had to listen. And so if there's someone out there who's like, that is the worst Willem Dafoe I've ever heard. I would concur because I didn't listen to it. This is my characterization of a Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, man, one of the greatest, man. I love him. He's amazing in Boondock Saints. He's amazing in Spider-Man. He's amazing in everything he's in. I love Willem Dafoe.
That he was in briefly doing his.
He was also in John Wick.
He was in John Wick. I didn't know John Wick
was gay.
One.
No. Well, I'm pretty sure he's gay in the first John Wick movie, not John Wick, but Willem's character, and he's also an assassin. He helps save John Wick.
Okay. Now, are you going to go see Ballerina? It's a sequel prequel. It is after John Wick 3, but before John Wick 4.
I might. I mean, I feel like the John Wick movies were kind of overdone a little bit after the third one, after the second one.
Yeah. Realistically, I think for the body count.
Yeah, I think after the second one, I think it could have ended there. But that being said, I'm sure it's good. I mean, even though I think it went too long, all 4 movies were great. Granted, they weren't as good as the first one. They obviously went down a little bit, but I mean, that whole series overall, I think was still better than like the Fast and Furious franchise.
Well, I think almost anything is better than the Fast and Furious franchise, but that's just me.
Touché.
But I think with the John Wick movies, and I've seen all 4 of them, it's really weird. I think to be honest, I'm not sure what, like, when I see John Wick 1 is on TV, I feel compelled to watch it. When John Wick 2, 3, or 4 are on, I don't feel as compelled to watch it, and there's nothing else to watch. And I don't feel like working on comedy, then I'll watch one of those 4 John Wick movies, but one of the other three. Now, I think that the writers got to the point where they sit around the room and they're going like, okay, let's see here. John Wick has killed the people with a gun, with a knife, with a pen, with a chain, with a what hasn't he killed them with? Blistex. Okay, he has to use Blistex as a weapon. How's he going to kill him with Blistex? Well, the corner is kind of sharp, and with enough velocity, you could right there. Yeah, that's it. He'll use Blistex as a weapon. Okay, we'll kill a guy with Blistex.
Don't forget the nail. I bet they just empty out a lady's purse and it's like, all right, these are your weapons for the next one.
Oh, okay. Yes. Tampon. How are you going to kill him with the tampon? Well, I'm going to insert it in myself, yank it out, and wave it, and they're going to go no, and then back off the cliff.
I'm going to put it in my ass and get it covered in poop, and I'm going to throw it on their car window when they're chasing me.
Oh, Mr. Slap. Yeah, Mr. Is it Mr. Slap or Mr. Tail? What's his? Mr. Slap. Does he know about? Did you send him a snapshot? Did you send him the snapshot of the thing that was in our chat?
Yeah, he wants it to basically die. He's over it.
Okay.
Because it's so boring. Nobody's really doing anything. It's just little comments here and there.
Okay, I got you. I'll just check in. I was making sure. Okay. Now, what did you get? What did you learn today about God, Stephen?
He's a terrible designer, a bad manufacturer, terrible programmer, and everyone that he's made has to work really hard to get him to like him again, and it's too much work.
Okay. I was just curious, and one of the things I did not ask the guy was the school of thought that he is deferring to. And what I mean by that is like you can be like quote a Christian, but if you're learning from books and it says that he majored in anthropology and minored in Biblish, right? Biblish.
Something like that.
So that was his minor, Bibbling. What school of thought did he minor under, and what version of the Bible were they looking at, or were they looking at?
That's my biggest hang up. And we kind of touched on it because obviously we've talked about I was an atheist activist. And while I was with my ex-wife, I became Christian and got baptized. And
you sold out.
Well, I sold out, but
sold out. Don't for tails. Oh yeah, sold out.
But it immediately.
Okay.
But it didn't sit with me pretty much from the get-go. And the biggest reason for that was like almost every Christian I've run into in some way or another are judgmental when they claim to not be. They are, generally speaking, most of the Christians I've run into are two-faced. They're high and mighty in person, but then when they're by themselves, they're just disgusting, terrible people. And then kind of to round it out, when it comes to like a Christian education for kids, it's a willful ignorance towards science. Because the common thought process is like, if you were to erase all of religion and all of science, right, and have them rediscovered, science would probably be rediscovered in a similar way. The equations would probably be very similar, if not the same as when they were originally discovered. But if you were to erase religion and have people rediscover religion, it would come out different. Because at this point, religion is almost a geographic outcome. Like your religious preference is based on where you're from and who you live with.
Okay, so you and the dude are pretty much saying the same thing, because the dude said, I think religion is a farce. I don't know if I'm not saying that part, I'm not saying that, but here we go. Starting here. If you erased all religion and science would be discovered and rewritten almost the same. Religion would be different. Science is numbers and math. Religion is human misunderstanding. That's the next line. I just didn't see.
It's pretty spot on. That's kind of the mindset I have. It's because at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of people telling you how to live, and if you don't live like they do, it's gonna cause a problem. And in most cases, a lot of conflict is religion based. It's either religion or politics. Like, rarely do wars break out because somebody doesn't like Backstreet Boys. It's because you insulted my deity and I insulted your deity, or you don't live like we do. Like the Middle East. The Middle East is 10,000 years in the hole due to religious conflict.
Okay, what about the Drake, the other guy, Drake and the other guy, that war? Okay, that was pretty serious.
Drake and Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, that was a pretty serious war, or I guess that was more like a skirmish. Okay, it's East Coast rappers versus West Coast rappers. That was a serious war. There were lives lost. People lost their
But
lives
again,
behind
it
that
was
war.
It was geographically based, right?
I
Whether
thought it was
you lived
based
on
on
the East
music.
Coast,
I thought
it was based
on
up.
music.
Yeah, but it was. Are you an East Coast rapper or a West Coast rapper?
Right. It's the music. It just so happens that it happens to be on East Coast and West Coast. If they were in Minneapolis and Texas, it would have just been a North South thing.
You have no coast rappers also, like Eminem and
Wait a minute. Did you say no talent rap? I'm just teasing.
no coast.
Oh, no coast. Okay, I bet you said talent. Okay. Actually, I'm just
Oh.
joking. I
We'll
actually
get Marshall
admire.
coming after us.
I actually admire what what's his face 8 Mile guy could do somewhat. Yeah, him. Because I've seen 8 Mile. I've been there. I've been to that part of
I've
the
been there
Michigan.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to that part of the Michigan, and I could say, whoa, someone with that kind of rapping ability came out of this. I'm impressed.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Yeah, if you go like it's like 4 hours, 5 hours north of where I'm at, like yeah, you go up there. It's yeah, I mean, a lot of these communities where some of these like not just rappers but musicians come from in general. A lot of the times, you're like, holy fuck, how did they escape this?
It was funny because I'm trying to think here. I was working the Detroit Middleburg Heights area. I think Middleburg Heights is Detroit. That could be Ohio. Parma, I can't remember now, but I know it's definitely Detroit and north of that. Um, and now I'm just working, and all of a sudden I'm driving along, and I hear this, like I see like 6 Mile, 7 Mile, and went, I wonder if I'm going to pass 8 Mile, right? And when I got to 8 Mile, I went, oh shit, this is where that white guy was, the white rapper, Eminem or Almond Joy, whatever that candy is. But it was really funny how when I crossed 8 Mile, I had that little thing of connectedness, and then I went back, okay, 9 Mile, 10 Mile, 11 Mile. Every mile there was like another road called Mile.
And another rapper?
Another rapper.
Eminem Peanut, Skittles, Dum Dums, Smarties.
Now this is just a thought that I just had. Because some people, a lot of their stuff is based upon where they grew up. A lot of their rapping stuff, And if you grow up in a town, let's say you want to be a rapper, but you grew up in some place where the names are not conducive to rhyming, like you grew up in Orange County, and it makes you have to say like orange. Okay, how can I rhyme with orange?
Eminem rhymed the word boring and orange in a song. So
well, I think I did So Strange and No Range with Orange or something. I did, yeah. Only because when I was younger and I wanted to be a poet. Actually, I was a poet. Nobody gave a shit about my poetry. There was like a list of words that nobody could rhyme, and I said, "Oh no, I will rhyme them." So I did. I think I used there was like 8 or 9 words that we had. So you just can't rhyme. I used I did every last one and used them all in the same poem and rhymed them. He just thought, okay, the poem is crap, but you stuck to your point. So I think that was probably the last poem I wrote by force. Like, no, God damn, I'm gonna write all these words and I'm gonna make them fit. It's like, yeah.
Whoa, that poor poem.
Yeah, I know. I didn't move it. I didn't take.
If he's not rhyming, he's raping.
Now, speaking of raping, have you talked to Ron lately? Do you know if he made it back from Connecticut safely?
He posted on Snapchat earlier saying a video, but that was pretty much it.
Okay, I forgot that. No, that's not it. Stop it.
Here's Ron's video. I'm gonna play the audio.
I don't think you know where the mic on your phone is. I mean, where the speaker on your phone is.
I do. It's not. It's playing from the front of the phone.
No, the speaker is in the bottom end.
I know. But the iPhone, it comes out the front too. What the fuck, Ron? Ron's making videos about butter. He must be lonely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's just lonely.
Well, he has a wife. How can he be lonely? Holy shit! You know something? We just lost like almost every viewer we had. It's just like that quick. It was like right then. Like you should. I said asked about Ron, and like every viewer just left.
I know. Jeez.
Come back. It was just a temporary thing. Ron is come back.
Ron's
shit.
gone.
Yeah, Ron is gone. That doesn't sound like he's gone when you do that.
Listen, Ron is not
coming for you.
He's not coming for you. He's gone.
Now, are you going to be participating? First of all, are there scheduled protests for Trump's birthday? Well, in your area?
Probably. This little town I live in, they tend to protest out by the courthouse / government building, which is only one building. And then in Fort Wayne, where I'll be this for the next few days, probably. They always kind of chip along. So we'll see what happens.
Now on the 14th, guys, people out there, if you don't feel like protesting and you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, please go to the Dormouse Theater, check out the comedy stylings of Jamie Schreiner and that guy Danny Lang, and the others. Check them out.
Also, don't forget to check out. Also, don't forget to check out Slap Tail's open mic on the 17th. The new location.
That's right.
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here real quick.
Yes, according to Mr. Slap, protest first and then come do your comedy to unwind. Now, I did
I'm pulling it up real quick here.
Oh,
little advertisement for our friends here.
I did do I did the rare open mic last night. I don't generally do open mics because they're bad for my style.
I saw that. How was it?
I did well, even though let's put it this way. They were laughing. I fucked up my material, but they don't know my material, so they don't know I fucked it up. And I saved it and rescued it, and they laughed. I got actually, I'm pretty sure I got the biggest and most consistent laughs of the night. Now, part of that is the guy who introduced me screwed up my introduction, and he made me sound like a god. He made me sound like a fucking comedy god. And so you can almost hear people when I'm walking up there, you can almost hear them like, oh. The people that didn't know me, they were like maybe 5 who already knew me, and they were like, okay, yeah, GD is doing another show, no big deal, fuck yeah, okay. But
that's awesome.
There was like,
all right, so
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, I thought you were sick. So
okay.
There was like, I took pictures and I think there was like maybe 35 to 40 people there, but 22 or 23 of them were comedians. You had to count, the pictures. I did individual pictures of almost all the comedians, except for one. I forgot to shoot the very first guy to go up. I didn't take his picture. And it's just because I was busy talking to Tom. And then I was talking to Tom and the guy went up, and I stopped talking to Tom and I was listening to the guy. And I'm listening to him, and he had two really interesting premises that he took nowhere. He took absolutely nowhere. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting premise, but he never landed the plane, and he did it twice. And I said, oh man, that's a damn shame. And then he finished and went, oh fuck, I didn't take his picture. And it was the only Asian guy on the show. So it looks like, unless you were there, it's like, wait a minute, he didn't get the Asian guy. It's not because he was Asian, it's because I take the pictures of the people when they first walk up. And so when he first walked up, I was just finishing talking to Tom, and I just started watching him, and I didn't have my camera in my hand, you know. And by the time I realized I didn't take his picture, I had to grab my camera, turn it on, wait for it to, then set it, and it was set for a movie and not photograph. So I had to change the setting, and then he was like, done, gone. I was like, oh shit.
Well, real quick here, I wanted to plug the open mic for Slaptail since you plugged his June 14th show. So let's see here. So here is the next
First and
open
third
mic
Tuesday.
right here. First and third Tuesdays. Going to be at the Wax Wings Brewing Company on Gull Road in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Starts at 7. Laughs, friends, beers, and good time. Reach out to the Beeve Man, aka John Beavers, if you're interested in getting a spot. I will be there, and I encourage you guys to be there as well. So check it out.
When's the first one? When is the first one?
The first one is the 17th, June 17th.
Okay, so the first one is on the third Tuesday, and then the second one will be on the first Tuesday of the next month. He's going to confuse people. No, I'm just teasing. It's the first and third Tuesday of the month. And so you're going to be there on the 17th.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's nice. I wasn't invited. No, I'm just teasing.
Well, I mean, you could come probably. I mean, it's just a few hours.
Not for an open mic. I'm not going up there for an open mic. I'd go there for a show in a heartbeat, or 2 heartbeats.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I not for. And the matter of fact, Mr. Slap and he knows I will come up there for a show. But not an open mic. I don't even go. Like I said, the open mic I went to last night, it was like 98 miles round trip. Yeah, 98 miles round trip. I did the mileage in my receipt thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was for 4 minutes of comedy, which like that 4 minutes for me is like that's my introduction.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the problems I was having is like I didn't have anything that I could just do in that period of time. I wrote down 4 things. I said I can do these 4 things. And then once I started talking, I thought to myself, I'm not going to get through all 4 of these in 4 minutes. There's no way. So let me cut 2. And so I'm doing all this live, and that's how I messed up the material. I'm deciding what to cut when I realized, because usually I time these things at home. I time them out, and I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm a lot more crisp. And I just, because it was 4 minutes, I didn't take it seriously. And honestly, I was like, 4 minutes, what the fuck? And I didn't take it seriously. But it was still funny. And I won't say the material I did because I haven't recorded it. It's not public yet. I did one of them I did at the thing at Governor's. That Matt thought was probably the one thing that Matt thought was good. I'm just teasing. But I did that, and that went real well. And even though I fucked it up, it went well. Again, because it was so new to them, the concept was new, and it's just so liberating. They just laughed. But yeah, it was good. I had a good time, and the food was good. Matter of fact, the place it's called Slice. It's called Home Slice Pizza in Columbia, Maryland. And on Done Way Past Funny, I ask people, if they're a performer, I'll ask them the best smelling place and the worst smelling place they performed in. And as my example, Home Slice is what I use as my best smelling place. It's like a pizzeria, and it just smells so good when you walk in. When you walk in, it's like, oh, I'm home. Now, and my blood sugar went way up. My blood sugar went to like almost 270 last night because the drink I wanted, they didn't have. I wanted a tea. I wanted a hibiscus tea, and they didn't have it. And so the guy goes, want a lemonade? I went, yeah, sure. Without thinking, the lemonade is going to have lots of sugar and it's going to drive. And I'm already eating a chicken breast sandwich, But I was thinking to myself, but I got the salad instead of the fries, so I should be. No, I wasn't okay. That lemonade just shot the way. The only good thing is that it was sugar, and because it was sugar, I knew it was going to drop down real fast. I was going to have a sugar crash.
Yeah. Man, that's got to be a lot to worry about, man. I don't know if I'd rather be diabetic or crippled.
Um, well, the thing that I worry about most of all about being diabetic is because you can't have a constant glucose monitor. I can't turn it off. No, I mean you cannot turn it off. You can't turn it off. There's no turning it off. Otherwise, it's not a constant glucose monitor. And like every 4 or 5 months, I have to get a new one because the battery died. You can't replace the battery either. You can just recharge it, and then it dies, and then you get rid of it and you get a new one.
Jeez.
And because I can't turn it off, if my glucose goes too high or too low while I'm on stage, you'll hear the and so I try to monitor what I'm eating before I go up because I don't want to have to explain it. Because
That's fair. Yeah.
Because that's another 4 minute bit about me being diabetic. I mean, I have, yeah. And I think I have things that I do that I have not recorded on purpose so that I can use them in a pinch. So it's like I've never done. I have like maybe 10 jokes or short stories that I have not recorded that if I run into trouble, I can pull them out and use them. And then nobody can say, wait a minute, he used that on his second special or his first special. It's like, nope, did not. No, I didn't. I did not. I have a spreadsheet. I know where I've used it. No. So when it comes to comedy, how do you keep track of your jokes and your stories and stuff like that?
Well, I have my notepad in my phone, but I actually downloaded an app called Joke Book on Apple iPhone. And what's nice is it organizes each joke by joke. You can organize them by title or by when you wrote them. You can also plug and play, like pick jokes and insert them into a set, and it'll kind of give you a rough estimate on the time. It's not very accurate because it doesn't take into consideration laugh breaks or anything.
Right.
So I don't use that function of it frequently, but I do use it just to keep track of my jokes.
And see, I didn't. There was no such app when I started, so I had a spreadsheet, and so I have now to be honest, I didn't start using the spreadsheet. Well, I take that back. I started using maybe I started using a spreadsheet once I formed my company, I think. But I have a spreadsheet, and each year of comedy, I have like the jokes that I use, when I use them, when I use them, where I use them, and that's so if I go back to that same venue, I don't duplicate those jokes or whatever. And then whatever I record, whatever's recorded and put out there as a special, I put that into a separate spreadsheet, and it's no longer usable. No. And then so my spreadsheet only reflects the stuff that can go into the next special. And then I have a separate spreadsheet of stuff that I can use in a pinch. But that's just like I said, just jokes or short stories. I'm like, okay, I need 3 minutes, or somebody brought this up and I have a story about that. I'll use this. So
makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it makes sense to me. But someone else might go real, and that's the other thing. And so I used to ask, because I noticed a lot of comedians have like the joke book, which is very linear, so to speak. You write a joke and it's in the front of the book, and now you're like 30, 40 pages in. You kind of have to know where in the book it is, unless you have a table of contents, like in the back, and you write a joke in your joke book, and it's on page 14. And then you go to the back of the book, you have a table of contents, you go, joke such and such, page 14. And then you get, because I'll ask them, I said, how do you know where your jokes are? They said, well, I kind of like know when I wrote them. I said, I have no idea when I write shit.
Well, see, and also I don't write my jokes out word for word. I write out.
You use comma per comma? What are you using for the words? What are you using for the words to write your jokes?
Or generally, I write down the premise like word for word. But I don't write them down word for word because I don't like to tell my jokes the same way every time. So like you might be able, like if you come to, like, for example, in February at Summit, I had there was the 7 o'clock show and the 9 o'clock show. I did the same set both shows, but even Jeremiah Watson was like, man, those were two good sets. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. He goes, He goes, were those the same? I was like, they were, but I don't tell him the same. He goes, I love that. Like, it was just because I can do the same jokes, but even if you went to both shows, you'd have a hard time knowing they were the same exact jokes.
Now,
So
last night before Tom Myers, I was sitting with my friend Tom Myers. Yes, my friend Tom Myers.
oh, suck it, bitches. Anyway,
I was sitting with Tom Myers, and before he went up, he showed me, he had one of his jokes written out, and he showed it to me. And first of all, his handwriting, he writes very small. And I mean, he writes so small, but like somebody, like you think somebody's reading his jokes over his shoulder, and it's so small that if you're this far away, you can't read it. So he shows it to me. He goes, "I'm very proud of this joke," and he shows it to me. And so I had to get out my phone. The writing was so small, I was ready to turn my camera on and enlarge it so I could read it. But then I thought that would really look bad. Like, why don't you just get glasses, you old fuck? So I just used the light from my phone so I could see what his joke was, and I read it. And when he did it like word for word the way he wrote it. And I kind of admire people who can do that. I can't do that. Well, I'm not incapable of it. I can memorize stuff. I can't do it because at the very moment that I tell it, I have a different feeling, and different words pop into my head to express those feelings, even though I'm trying to get to the same point. Or like last night, I was pressed for time, and I'm going like, how do I shorten this in a way that people still can follow this?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so it was fun, and I think the best part of the open mic was I got to see people that I haven't seen for a while, people that I actually like and care about.
Yeah.
You know, but then I get asked to just say, and the funny thing is they think that I'm like I'm involved in the loop, so to speak. They'll say, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "Westminster," and I said, they go, "Who runs the mic up in Westminster?" I said, "I have no fucking idea because whoever it is, I don't think I get along with them." And I said, once I said that, I said, "That's right, I know who runs it." And I said, "This is who runs it, and this is why they hate me." I said, "I think I don't, I don't know why." Okay. I don't know why they hate me. I just know that they did. And to this day, they don't speak to me. As a matter of fact, he and I showed up at an open mic about a month or two, about 2 months ago. And I went there. I went to the open mic because that club was where the Blessings and Blasphemy shows were going to be. So I went to their open mic just so I could promote Blessings and Blasphemy. So I went there dressed as the Rev to, and the guy was there, and it's the way usually where he goes to go for his open mics. And when he saw me, he turned around and left. He didn't come in the building. And they said, "Where's he going? Where's he going?" And they said, he didn't even come in. What happened? I said, "He saw my face." He said, "Well, you're ugly, but that doesn't mean people shouldn't come into the club." I said, "No." And so, and I won't mention them by name because I'm not that kind of guy.
Crazy.
So I forgot the thing that you're doing tonight. That's not the contest, right?
No. No, I'm not in a contest anymore. But there's tonight's Visions Event Center, and then next Wednesday I'll be at the Fairlane Barrel Room, and then Thursday will be Slaptails open mic.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to do another show at another theater locally, because I was getting pressure from my family to do something closer to home, and since the club's closer to home, I seem to have good number of them still seem to have beefs with me, or porks or chickens, or they have some meat product with me.
They have some sort of meat product with you, right?
Yeah,
right.
Spam, could be spam.
Yep.
And so I don't even ask to get on their shows anymore. I don't even ask. When I see them, and here's the thing: I don't even ask to be on their shows anymore. But when they see me, they're like, "Yo, dude, man, you're so funny. I gotta get you on one of my shows." I used to say things like, "Okay, when?" and it never transpired. They were just saying that, and so I just say, look, don't pretend you want me on your show, okay? Just don't do that. And so now I look like a dick because I'm saying to them, don't lie to me, you know. Well, so I look like the dick. It's like, no, just don't lie to me. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine. I don't have to be on every show. I don't have to be on your show. I don't have to be on anybody's show. You know, if you want me, fine. If you don't, fine. You know, I'm cool with that. I'm not an O donor. I'm not the O donor of comedy. You know, I'm not the universal donor. I don't make everybody laugh. Or, you know, that's okay.
You make me laugh.
Yeah, but you laugh at everybody.
Not
No, I'm just
everything.
teasing.
Almost everything.
Yeah, see. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So what do you think Matt's painting today?
Lines in the middle of the street. I don't know.
I said what's he doing? Not I said what's he painting, not what's he doing. I'm sure he's doing lines somewhere, but
no, man, painting lines in the middle of the street.
Painting lines.
Painting
Okay,
lines in the middle of the street, yes.
I thought he was doing booger sugar out there, you know.
No. Well, he could be, but I don't think that's his choice of drug. I think he is
not.
straight. I think he's straight up
a marijuana guy.
Yeah, straight up pot. I don't know. I should check. I wonder, is he so he doesn't broadcast those private parties.
No.
So yeah, but there we go. So what else is going on? I don't know. I didn't realize that Matt was going to be leaving. I would have planned a little bit better.
Yeah, I didn't realize it either. I didn't expect to have to didn't expect for us to have to carry the show after he left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to carrying the show while he's here.
Oh shit. Man.
Yeah. So fuck. I texted Elizabeth Croydon's mom. We're sending good thoughts your way, Elizabeth, if you're listening.
Oh, I was like, why are you messaging her mom, you fucking weirdo?
No, I was supposed to be on her podcast yesterday.
I remember.
Her mom took ill, or she says her mom took ill because she realized that she made a mistake asking me to be on her podcast.
She invited a black guy to her house. She probably got nervous.
That's right. Yeah, could be. Yeah. So, but she said, but her mom took ill, and so I sent her a text asking her how mom was. So I'm hoping she's doing well because she said it's a mess. That was her description of it. She said it's a mess. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, this might just be an early wrap up today, man. Kind of making up for all the days we went till noon.
Yeah. Now, oh gosh, did I tell? I don't know if I told the guys about my raccoon problem.
Oh God, what's your raccoon problem?
No, did I? I know the Reverend talked about my raccoon problem on Sunday, but I don't think I talked about it because
I don't think you did. I think just the Rev did. Yeah.
Okay. And for those of you who care, my wife is an animal lover. She loves the animals. I like the animals too, but I wanted to have them keep their distance from the house. But thanks to my wife's generosity, they know where we live and they come here for food. The deer look for food from here, us, the raccoons. The foxes don't, but so we have a cat, and I was concerned that the raccoons coming up on the deck, that I couldn't identify a sick raccoon. I would know if one was sick. And my cat goes out on the deck when the raccoons are out there. Weird. She used to try to scare them off, but now she realizes they're not a threat. And so she just goes out and looks at them. And I want to be able to identify. And the other cats, we have also two field cats, two strays that come to the house.
You have field cats and house cats? That sounds really reminiscent or something. Yeah, oh my God.
Yeah, it does.
He's a house kitty.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that. Matter of fact, I used that in my show I used that a bit a while ago.
Dang it. All right.
But yeah,
I thought I wrote something new there.
No, I didn't. It's one of those things that I don't record, but if somebody brings something up, I got it in my quiver, so to speak.
Ew, you're
And
quivering.
so,
Gross.
yeah, the cats do that. So, but I wanted to protect them, so I wanted to be able to identify early sickness in the raccoons. So I called Humane Society, and I was asking about raccoons and distemper and raccoons and rabies, and we're having this discussion. And so she goes, well, unfortunately, you cannot really tell if a raccoon is rabid while it's alive, which I think is weird because one of the symptoms is that it drools, right? And
Foams
since
at the
rabies,
mouth, and I always thought rabies. They foamed at the mouth. They didn't fear people. They had no. You couldn't intimidate them. They would just like keep coming and just
but there are other things that do this. Okay, for example, I had one raccoon that was dribbling at the mouth. He was just thirsty. So
Okay.
and we have water on the deck. And he's not afraid of me because he's been coming to my deck since he was a kitten or whatever baby raccoons are called. I don't know what
Pups.
baby raccoons are called. Coonies. So,
I don't know if you can see.
but since he and his mom and him and his other sibling used to come up on deck, and he was the small one. He was a little runt, and he always had to fight for food. They eat first, and he'd be like, "Where's all the fucking food?" And then I'd have to and I would throw off some crackers or something. And so he's not afraid of me. He's known me, pretty much since he was a little coonie. And so that doesn't work. So the fear thing that I can't use that. He's scrawny. He didn't thrive because he was not fed like the other one was. The mother was feeding the biggest one, and the smallest one's if you make it okay, you make it okay. So he's scrawny, which is a symptom of the disease. He was foaming at the mouth, but because he's thirsty, he's not afraid of me because he's known me all his life. So I need to know, is there something else I can go by to know if he's rabid? She goes, well, the only way to tell is to shoot them. No, I'm not. Is that they have to be dead? And I said, I don't understand. Isn't rabies a virus? And she goes, yes. I said, so wouldn't the virus be in the saliva? And she goes, here's the deal. I asked him about if a rabbit raccoon salivated on my deck. She goes, well, the virus can only live an hour or two outside the body. So that means there will be dead. So if a raccoon salivated on my deck, I should be able to get the saliva, and even if it's dried by the time I got it to someplace, they would say, okay, there's dead rabies viruses in here. Right? That seems logical to me. You should be able to you shouldn't have to kill a raccoon. You can just grab the spit. You can catch them, grab the spit, see if there's virus, because otherwise there's no point in telling me that the virus can live outside the body for an hour, and once it dries up, it's dead. That means the virus appears outside the body. So why do you have to kill the raccoon? Yeah. So why do you have to kill the raccoon to know if it's rabid? You don't. But so she goes, she says, so the only way to know is to kill it. And I'm having this discussion with her. Now she's from the Humane Society. She's trying to help me. In the meantime, I'm arguing with her saying, but what about this? What about that? And so she's explaining away everything that I talked to her about. And so she says, you have to dispatch it so you can shoot it. No, she says you have two choices. If you trap it, you're responsible for it, and you have to find a place to release it. Or you can dispatch it. You can shoot it. And I went, I don't have a gun. I said, I do have a collection of swords and spears and axes, so I can stab it to death. And she goes, no, don't do that. Oh my God, no, don't do that. That'd be so messy. And I said, what if I use my nunchucks? And I went, she starts laughing. You can imagine me fighting a raccoon with my nunchucks. And say, so I haven't used my raccoon.
Like Undercover Brother.
Yeah, yes, I didn't. So I still have the two raccoons that come up on the deck. They're siblings. You can look at their faces and they look almost exactly alike. They're like twins if you look at their faces. but you look at their bodies, and you can tell the one that wasn't thriving because he's not as big, not as fluffy, and I thought, I really thought it was going to turn out to be rabbit. Now the healthy one has ticks in his ears, and I really wanted to get the ticks out of its ears. Well, 2 ticks. And they're nervous too. You can tell the ticks are nervous. So it's nervous ticks in his ears. And I don't know if he'll let me do it. The cats, just stray cats, they'll let me pull the ticks off of them. At least one of them will. The other one won't let me touch it. So what kind of vermin do you have out there in your neck of the woods? I mean, you obviously seem like a
Pretty
country
much.
boy.
Pretty much the same. I mean, where I'm at, it's pretty much similar to what you have. Like squirrels,
Y'all have skunks?
raccoons,
Y'all have
skunks.
skunks? Okay.
Yep, skunks, groundhogs, moles. Yeah, I mean,
What kind of
down
snake?
south, snakes, corn snakes, garter snakes, water moccasins. Pretty
Okay.
much
So you
it.
have
And then down like down south, for example, though, where I lived, like vermin was a lot different. I mean, you had scorpions, bigger spiders, turtles, lizards. You had armadillos, raccoons, squirrels, possums. Everything up here, plus a bunch of shit that you just didn't have down there. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was common to like come outside and find, an armadillo going after, a fire ant hill, or or skunks going after scorpions and shit. I mean, it was all common. Yeah.
So now in Maryland, we used to have a lot of skunks. And then I think most of them, honestly, I believe that most skunks were killed by cars up here. I mean, they were just constant, and then we went for like 4 years and I didn't see any skunks at all. I didn't see any skunks. I didn't smell any skunks. It's like for 4 years. And then the other, maybe about a year ago, I saw a skunk and I was so excited. I said, Carol, look, a skunk. She goes, why are you so excited? I said, because I haven't seen one in Maryland for like years, and they used to be everywhere. So I hope they're making a comeback. But
Yep.
now I think Carol grew up in Maine, and I think, yeah, they had skunks and they had porcupines, which we don't have down here. We don't have porcupines.
Yeah, we don't have those either. No, I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild. I think like down south, I think like the craziest things I would see like out and about, like going fishing or going through the woods or just out in nature, was like coming across a body of water and finding alligators. That was a big one. Yeah. I remember being in ROTC and we're taking canoes out, and this lake Lake Eufaula in Alabama is a big bass fishing area. The pro bass tournaments go out there. But they have 10 or 12 like 6 to 12-foot alligators in that lake. And
Wow.
And what was crazy is we were out there, it was myself and a buddy, we reach in a canoe and we were paddling along, and off on the distance you can see there's 4 of them just chilling on the bank, right? And my buddy and I were fucking around and he tipped my kayak over, and I flipped over and I'm in the water, and me being me, I saw the gators. So in my mind, and this is the first time I've ever seen them in the wild. So in my mind, I'm like, I hope I don't fall out of this boat. I don't want to see the gators. I fall
But
out
you're
of
in
the
a
boat.
kayak. Did you say kayak
It was
or canoe?
It was canoe. Sorry, it was a canoe.
Oh,
It was
okay.
a canoe.
Kayak,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he flipped the canoe, or he flipped the canoe. I flipped in the water, and then these gators hit the water. And I mean, granted, it was a decent distance away, so I just fucking took off and swam to the shore and left the boat.
Now I'm curious because your legs are somewhat inoperable. So you have a good deal of upper body strength that you have, and you have enough arm strength that you can swim without the use of your legs.
Oh yeah, I was able to. I swam back, and yeah, I can swim just fine.
Okay, I was just curious because I learned to. Okay, when I was a lot younger, which when I was in elementary school, I began to take notice of people with disabilities, And so I started practicing during the summer. I would practice having a disability. So, like, well, I would spend 1 week being blind. I would spend 1 week only having one arm. Then I'd have 1 week doing the other arm. So, like, for the whole summer, I would use a different sense. I would lose a different sense or a part of my body each week during the summer, so that I would have an idea. And I think the deaf was the hardest one to do because it was hard for me to close up, to block my ears so that I could not hear totally. That was really, really hard. No matter what I did, I could still hear.
Yeah.
Always hear a little bit. That was the hardest one. But the blind one, that's the one that almost got me killed, being blind. Because I was going to the store and I had all this stuff mapped out, like, and I knew where the store was and how many steps to cross the street and how many steps. And I don't know what happened, but I got in the street and I started walking and I said, I know it's 22 steps across the street. And I go like 22, no curb, 23, no curb, 24, no curb, 25, no curb. And I'm like, what the fuck? I got the 40 and there was no curb. I said, something's not right. So I took the blindfold off and I look and I'm walking down the middle of the street. Somehow I made a 90-degree turn, and I do not know when I made a 90-degree turn. When I just had to cross the street. I don't know when I made it, and I'm just walking straight down the street, with my stick doing this, looking for the curb. So that's the only one. The one that almost killed me.
Jeez.
So.
All right, man. Well, I got to jump off here. I got to get ready to hit the road myself.
All right.
So, I guess tomorrow we'll be back.
Yeah, but now I'm going to play something different for the video for our.
Okay.
I just got to find it real quick. Don't tell me where it is. Don't tell me. I know. I'll find it. And this is in honor of what's it called? I mean, what's the name of it? Shit. It's on Sly and the Family Stone. Sylvester Stallone recently passed away. And
Sylvester Stallone?
No, Sly. Sylvester Stone.
Sly Stone.
Yeah, Sly Stone died. And so I forgot what it's called. What was it? Everyday People, right? Oh, okay, got it. I know what it's called now. It's called Everyday People. And that's why I couldn't find it, because I didn't know what to call it. So, no. Right, here we go. So, that's not what I meant to do. Stop it. This is a song parody from one of my song parodies based on Everyday People. It's one of my wife's favorite. It's called What the Fuck Is Wrong with People? It's a song parody of Everyday People by Sly and the Family Stone. Everybody, turn on your radio and thank you for watching.
Something's not right, like it don't belong. So I rewrote this classic song. There's so much bullshit I found on 8chan. All of the crazies have to have their rant. What the fuck is wrong with people? Yeah. Here is a new one that we could not agree on. The planet is a flat one, some idiot's opinion. These are not jokes, some people are jokes. They're so wrong, so come on, and could we do a doobie? We gotta live together. We can do better if that's what we choose. There's so much good that we can do on Twitter, on Facebook, and even LinkedIn. There's no more truth, there's only spin. What the fuck is wrong with people? Yeah. Someone with no hair has put us in their crosshairs because they think that their guns are better than we humans. These are not jokes. Some people are dopes. They're so wrong, so come on, and could we do a doobie? We gotta live together. There is another one, an elected congressman that will not accept anyone that wasn't born a white one. These are not jokes. Some people are dopes. They're so wrong, so come on, and could we do a doobie? What the fuck is wrong with